Hey, and welcome guys. As you can tell by the thumbnail, what we are building today is the Millennium Falcon with carrying or pushing the cargo carrier. Now, I saw some art that depicted how this the Millennium Falcon, at least a kind of a fictional way or hypothetical way, that this would still be a freighter. You know, it's listed as a freighter. We all know it's a freighter, but a freighter has to be able to carry freight. There's no real internal volume, so I think this kind of came afterward. So hopefully this all turns out well. I'm just going to start out explaining where I'm at this moment. Now this piece here is something I designed on Tinkercad and then printed out on my filament printer. And if you hear some background noise, it's going right now, making a little bit of some detailed parts. This is all one part except for this. This is actually going to go inside the mandibles. I should have added that on. I may go back and adjust that file. I'll try to remember and load this to my Thingiverse account and put a link if you do want to print this out. It's the scale for this Revell. There's Easy Build Millennium Falcons, and it should just slide in just like that. So you can kind of see I took some measurements, actually kind of planned it out a little bit. So I'm liking the way this looks. So there's a lot of work to do. So before I talk too much more about this, I want to jump to why I picked this. I have several of these. When I find them real cheap, for some reason I buy them. They're fun projects when you do stuff like this, and they're not terribly expensive. So if you mess up, it's not a great loss. However, I'm doing a lot of work to this. I'm going to change it around. I'm going to light it. Going to make it more realistic looking. I started off, as you can see here, the bottom's already primed. There's like this push landing gear that kind of shows. So I closed that up with some styrene plastic and some plastic putty to fill in some of the gaps. There's still a little bit kind of noticeable here and there, but for the most part, you also have this battery door. But I detailed those out. Won't be too noticeable. It's on the bottom, but start off just closing all that off. So that's kind of the first thing you have to look at if you want to start accurizing this, I guess you would say, or making it better looking. Another thing that you'll have to do is this engine grill right here is actually a push button for the lights and sound. Obviously, I'm not going to use that, but I need that cap, so I had to cut that away, put a little bit of styrene plastic right here, and then glue that in position. So now that's just part of the model that we have right here. One thing I also did is I knew it was going to be, to get all these things back and forth, this is a press fit model, and once you press it down, it's hard to get apart. So all these holes, I took drill bits and drilled out the holes to where I can still use the connecting points. However, it doesn't lock it down super tight. It'll line it up. Obviously, I'm going to be gluing this at some point, so I didn't want to move them, but I wanted to be able to close this up like this so I can check my fits, just like checking if I knew I was going to have to be fitting this back and forth, which I do now have a good fit on that. But I can also just pull it right apart. I'm going to use this clear part that's included. That's going to be easy to light. You can see here where I filled in some of the little holes for the speaker. But some of the other things I've done to accurize this, or make it look better, I guess you'd say, is let me show you a comparative part. So you have the gun turrets. Now this is the kit supplied part. Obviously that doesn't look all that great. I've printed out some little parts here, some guns. You can find these guns on Thingiverse, and you can download those and print them out. And you can see here where I've now replaced one. Much, much, much better. That alone will improve the look of this ship a great deal. It's a very detailed part, very nice looking. So that's going to be done. I'm not going to use, let's see if I can find, now this is the kind of the sequel version that had the new radar dish. I'm not going to use this. I don't really like that. I printed out. I found this also on Thingiverse. It's not super detailed, but it's the correct shape, and I'll be using that to give it more of the original Han Solo Falcon So I have that in place. So I think that's going to improve the looks right there. So I kind of have a couple of things going for it. Now, originally I wasn't worried too much about the cockpit. This is the part of the original cockpit that comes with this model. It kind of goes there. It's just kind of painted black. So I was thinking through my parts bin because I'm going to be greebling this up quite a bit. And I remember several years ago, I had one of the Revell, the solo movie Falcon, which is kind of the same. It's the same scale, but it's a little different. That one actually came with a cockpit. As you can see here, I found this cockpit. Now I'm going to do some weathering, probably some repainting, maybe some lighting on there, but also, you know, had this clear canopy. The only problem is that this part actually has this other part connected. This is one part, so I've had to cut away this section because I need that neck. That's that detailed part right behind the cockpit. It fits, it's the same size, but I need that part. I had to do some modifying. Let's see, it's handy to have those drilled out. Probably remove this connector point, but this will fit in. Oh, another thing I had to do is comes all the way across, so I took a Dremel and cut that around to make that kind of half circle, because you need a little bit. This extends out just a tad, and when you do that, it actually fits in quite nicely. So now I have a cockpit. I'll have the clear canopy over. As you can see there, it presses on pretty good. I'll have this piece come over. Of course, I have included. It might be a little bit of gap filling. And then I'll have this come over. So I like that. I think that's a big improvement. And, you know, it's still, you know, some of the details is not exactly, but this is a fun project. It's more than just a Falcon. It's the kind of the bringing to life this concept art that I saw. So that's what I have going on with the Falcon. Obviously, I'm going to have some lighting. I'm thinking about using this light strip I have. I think it's 5 volts, but this is even at 3 volts, it works pretty good, because I'm thinking about doing all my lighting just with simple 3 volts. And I've already checked it inside, so that's my lighting so far that I've come up with. Now on our actually cargo carriers, like I said, I printed out, and when I designed it, I put some detail, but I'm going to go back in. I'm going to put some more detail, styrene, maybe some greebles, give it a little bit more visual interest. I know it's in black, so it's kind of hard to see all that. There'll be probably some, once I put some primer, I'll see what kind of layer lines I have from the filament print. But I plan on detailing it out a little bit more. This is another like ladder part that I have made for other project. It's actually an engine grill for a Millennium Falcon that I scaled down, but I'm thinking just something along here to start giving it a little bit more visual interest. Things like that, and some greebles. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to work on getting this part completed, and then we'll come back once we can get it all greebled up and primed up before we get it painted. All right, so you can see here I have my cargo unit pretty much built and primed. Might be a little bit more touch-ups. Had some styrene, a couple of greeblies, did a lot of sanding. So I'm ready to move on. I haven't figured out quite what color. I have some ideas. I'll have to try to figure out what that's going to be. Still have a little bit of cleanup right here to do. Just somewhere, it was printing on the bottom layer unsupported, so I got some stringiness going on there. Shouldn't be too hard to fix that. So that's pretty much good to go. I have my ship starting to get the lights in place. I have my light strip right here in place. And with the wiring, I have my cockpit now glued in. As you can see, it's painted up, and we'll have this single SMD coming up just to kind of illuminate the cockpit and give it some life. I also added in on the top section of our ship some fiber optics. They put the seam right in the middle here, so it's a little out of place, but it still give a nice effect. And those are running down to a SMD right here, which you can see I've taken some electrical tape to kind of seal it so I don't get a lot of light bleed in here. And so it's sealed off. Here's the wirings for that. So all that will come together. I think I've decided that I'm going to be mounting it. I'm going to use this copper tubing or brass tubing, not copper. This brass tubing to mount the ship on, and it kind of fits nicely into this gunner's bay on the bottom. We'll have to epoxy that in there. It's a little bit overkill. It's a pretty sturdy pole, so it won't be going anywhere. And I'll cut this down. I'll probably have to do some support from the bottom of our cargo unit. It'll just be too much weight kind of hanging off the ship, so I'll probably have to use some of this tubing just to do some weight support on that, just so we don't get some sagging going on there. If you can see here, I've been trying to paint this grill a little bit, just using a paint marker and then matte coating it so we have a little bit of breakup on the grill. I'm going to do a few more coats on that. And from there, I think I'm getting ready to seal it up. Once I seal it up, we'll just move into painting. We'll have to check for light leaks and all that. And we'll have to mask off this cockpit. That'll be a chore because these are little tiny windows, but we'll get that done. There are some holes. See if I can get this in focus. Yeah, some holes right here. I don't know why there's holes in that glass. I'll have to seal those up with something or another. I'll probably do that after I paint. I'll probably just mask that off, maybe use some clear UV resin or something like that, or maybe even just some canopy glue. They're pretty small. But we'll address that later. But I want to go ahead and seal this up and get it ready for painting. All right, have my model all primed up. I think it's looking pretty good. Like the radar dish better than the other one. I have the gunner port left off for now. I think 3D printing that more detailed gun really makes a big difference on that. Looks really nice. I've left this off for now because I want to paint this up and then put the window insert and then attach that into here. I've checked my lighting and everything. It's all good. So now I'm just going to put on a base coat. I think I'm just going to go with some, try this Vallejo white gray. I've used it before. It's a good kind of Star Warsy color, not so stark of a white color. And move into some of the detail painting. All right, as you can see here, I got a lot of my detail painting done. I went over my base coat over the gray primer with some of this Vallejo white gray. That does a pretty nice color getting it in there. It's a little brighter than I typically like it, but still pretty nice. We're gonna, still a lot of weathering to do. I have, when I was doing my grays on here, you can see the different grays. I believe I was just using this aggressor gray from Model Air. I, of course, masked off some of these hard edges, but then when it was still, the paint was still loaded, I kind of darkened in and started doing some of the weathering a little bit more on the bottom here. I'm just going to do a lot more of that. I'll mostly be doing that with some pastels and some oil washes. The red was a mixture paint that I had left over when I did the NPC Falcon a couple of videos ago. If you want to check that out, it was just like a mixture of red and black, I think. Can't recall. I just had some left over and got that painted up. So from here, a lot more weathering, like I said, some washes and stuff, but we're pretty good to go. Of course, once I get all done with that, I'll take off the canopy. This part right here is just kind of setting in there. Of course, I had this off while weathering. I'll need to come back and weather this. The lighting's all working. So our Falcon's close to being done. As you can see now, my cargo shipment container is painted up in a couple different colors. It's a gray primer masked off in between. Did this color right here, it's called Glory Red by Game Air, and that's on top of a gray primer. Gives you kind of that deep red color, kind of like that color. I wanted something to really contrast the white of the Falcon and stuff, so that's looking pretty good. A couple different grays. I'm going to look through my decal box and see if I can put some kind of random decals to give just a little bit more personality. But liking the way it's looking, I did have to, as you recall, I glued this piece on to kind of fit into our ship. Well, I noticed that our ship was the Falcon was a little bit out of a cant. It wasn't lining up perfectly, so you can tell I just broke it off and I had to move it down just like a millimeter or two to get that to sit straight like it should. And then I just re-glued that on there. I'm not worried about the damage that you can see here. It's not going to be visible. I will more than likely glue this onto the Falcon once it's completed and ready to go. So a little bit more work, and we need I'm going to be weathering this up, dry brushing rolls and all that kind of stuff. But I really dig the paint job. I think that's a nice contrasting color for our Falcon. For now, I made this display base. This isn't permanent. I would eventually like to do like a scenic display base of some sort, but that's a whole nother project I'll do on my own. So this is just something to hold it for now. You can see here I have some tubing to support our shipping containers, and it's just going to rest on that. I'll maybe put some felt or something. I just don't want all that weight. Now the Falcon does actually hold this up when I put it into place, and it doesn't move. It's locked in there pretty good. However, over time, I don't want that sagging and causing the plastic to bend. So we'll have, and again, this is this piece of spare wood I had out in my shed, and I cut it, ran it through a belt sander, kind of left the grooves in for some personality. I had some gaps here I filled with some rubberized CA glue, and then sanded that down to kind of stabilize that corner and make sure it doesn't break off. I think I did some linseed oil. It's kind of a natural color, but then I went back over with some black oil paint and let that sit, and then kind of sanded it back off. And I kind of dig how that looks. Again, just temporary. I 3D printed this support here, so we'll have a place to put our battery and our switch and our wires and all that kind of stuff. I just designed that on Tinkercad, printed that off real quick, so we can have room for all that. This hole here for our switch. Wires come down there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this project up. I still have some weathering to do, and we'll get it all assembled. And when I come back, we'll look at the finished project. All right, well, here's my completed model. I have it mounted all on. The thing fit really nicely. I don't even think it's glued in. I think it's just pressure fitted in. Of course, I do have it kind of glued to this pole here, so it don't have any weight. However, it did support most of the weight. Finished up the weathering, as you can see here on the Millennium Falcon. Did a lot of dry pastels. Did a little bit of just like some pencil work to get some of those weathering lines in. Before I did all that, I did do a kind of a medium gray oil wash around the whole ship to kind of get into all the little panel lines in here, darken those up and bring out all the different panels. So pretty pleased with how that turned out, considering this is a build and play model with a little paint, a couple upgrades on the weapons and stuff like that. You can have a pretty decent looking Millennium Falcon. No, it's not a Bandai kit, but also didn't spend that very much for it. So not a bad deal. And I think these are great for projects like this where you're venturing out, you're not really sure how it's going to turn out, you don't want to kind of spend a whole lot of money. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed designing this. Now, I call this a barge. A barge is something that typically it's a flat bottom boat that gets pushed. It's not motorized, so I refer to it as a barge. And I just have to say, I posted this on some of the groups, and by and large, people were very friendly, nice, supportive, liked it. But there was one person who kind of started a whole thread with some other people about how it wasn't a barge and how the Millennium Falcon, they kind of rant and rave. They weren't necessarily ugly or anything, but they just kind of made a big deal that I called this a barge. I wasn't calling the Falcon a barge. I was referring to this as a barge. Call it whatever you want. It's sci-fi. I enjoy getting into the lore of it, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's a model. I'm just having fun. I just called it a name, and they kind of went on. I didn't respond to any of that. I typically don't respond. I just let them say what they wanted to say and have their own little conversation. But take a deep breath, lighten up, have fun. It's just a concept drawing that I saw that I wanted to bring to life. All right, enough of that. So anyway, got all the painting done. I've mounted it. I did upgrade it. Typically, I was running 3 volts. I was running like a 2 AA's, and so I tested my lights out, separate lights on a 4.5 volt system, and everything seemed fine. It seemed to power it a little bit better. And I'm going to turn around. You can see here there's just 3 AA batteries, so we got 4.5 volts. The reason that I'm just kind of glued here is because I may change this in the future, so I didn't want to get anything too locked down. So it's a little hot glue holding all of this into place right now. I can easily separate all this stuff, pull it off if I ever wanted to incorporate this into like a diorama or a different kind of base. However, now that it's done, I actually kind of like this wood grain look. It's a little different. I get it. It's not sci-fi or anything, but I think presentation-wise, it just like the wood grain look for some reason. So anyway, let's show you the lights on it. I think the engine light came out really well with that LED strip. And 4.5 volts powers that very well. That was the big plus on upgrading to 4.5 instead of the 3 volts. Is I think this particular LED strip is rated at 5 volts, so we're getting really close to what it's supposed to be at. My main concern was the SMDs that I'm running. Now, one of them has a resistor, so I wasn't worried about that one, but I was worried about this one. There was no resistor on that. And it's afraid it might be a little too much because those typically work at 3 volts. However, I took one of those, ran it on the 4.5 volts for a good while, and it seemed to be fine. So I'm risking, it may burn out or have a shorter lifespan, but for now, it seems to be working just fine. No issues there. And so I'm good with all that. So anyway, it was a really fun project. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can see our cockpit all lit up. The windows are so small it's really hard to see much detail, but you can kind of make out the seats and the instrument panel that are just painted. And there's just like a soft white SMD kind of in the back there illuminating all that. And then of course we have a bright white SMD with some fiber optics in here. And our barge is, now this barge is available on my Thingy First page. I believe if you look up Eagle Models, you should be find it, or if you search Millennium Falcon Barge, I think that's what I named it. You'll see the picture of this actual model, and you can download the barge. It is scaled exactly as you see it here for the Rebel Falcon if you want to do this kind of project. However, it does not have a lot of the greebles. That's up to you. You can customize it to what you want. You get the basic shape that it will fit into the Falcon here, but as far as and it does have some details, like some of these raised details are included on the 3D model, but I've added in some styrene, like front pieces, these ladder shapes. You can get this grid. This is actually also on my Thingy First page is this grill that I designed for the Millennium Falcon. You can scale it up and down, and you'll have a nice kind of ladder looking, there's some texture in there. And if you want to print that out, I've used it in several spots here. I have, of course, on the top as kind of a walkway or whatever you want to call it. There's some right here where I've left some intentional gaps in here. And then, of course, on the back, so you can use that. And you can see here where I repurposed the original radar dish that comes with this kit and put it up here to kind of give it just a little bit of visual interest on the top. And but do it however you want, paint it however you want. If you're interested, feel free to download it, and just love to see your pictures if you do that project. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the project, and until next time, everybody have a good one.